Hello, geeks, freaks, and all those unique. I'm EmceeFrodis. So we've all had that moment. We're watching a new television show or movie from a franchise we love, and something happens that makes us go, hey, that contradicts something that already happened. Sometimes it's an intentional change to the established continuity, in which case it's called a retcon, retroactive continuity. Or maybe the creator forgot the other thing that happened, in which case it's a continuity error. Which I have to say happens way easier than you might think. It's not a matter of people not caring about the work they're writing. I've made continuity errors in my work over the course of writing it for just a few months, with mega franchises that can be written over years or even decades with multiple writers. It's pretty impossible to keep everything straight, even if you have somebody whose job it is to just keep track of all of that stuff. But as frustrating as continuity errors can be, I propose, let's stop caring about them. Okay, maybe that's a disingenuous statement. I'm someone who either cares about continuity errors or I don't. It depends on the situation. Just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to call these things continuity changes. They can either be intentional alterations or mistakes on the part of the creators. What's important is that something has changed from what we previously knew. Of course, if you dislike the plot point of the continuity change, you're not going to like it. For example, in The Rise of Skywalker, I hated changing Poe's backstory as a New Republic pilot to a spice runner because it was a pretty racist stereotype that added nothing to Poe's characterization or the plot of the movie. You know, one of these days I'm going to stop using Rise of Skywalker as an example for stuff I don't like, but today is not that day. Just to make things fair, I can give a Rise of Skywalker continuity change that I did like. Up until that movie, it was heavily implied to pretty much outright stated that Leia didn't actually train in the Force, rather choosing to focus on her political career. Leia being a Jedi was one of the things I did like, and the flashback scene with her and Luke brought tears to my eyes. Generally, the more I like a new installment, the more I'm willing to accept continuity changes, and I think this applies to most people. But I know there are some people out there who dislike things specifically because of continuity changes, which I think is a really unfortunate way to look at things. I have made it no secret that I come from a fanfic background. Fanfic writers are always creating things based off canon. So I think instead of looking at continuity changes as changes, how do we look at this as an opportunity? How do you explain the change? When Star Trek Discovery first started, people complained that Michael Burnham was portrayed as Spock's adopted sister, despite Spock never mentioning that he had a sister. Personally, I never had a problem with this because Spock never talked about his family members until they were literally standing in front of Kirk and McCoy. But this question was raised amongst a lot of fans, and it was answered at the end of season 2. By Discovery and the crew being sent to the future and declared classified by Starfleet, Spock legally wasn't allowed to talk about it with Kirk and McCoy. Oftentimes, when continuity changes are answered, it's done in ancillary media. Either the topic is covered in a novel, comic, or the creators comment on them through social media or interviews. But even if they're never answered, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's a continuity opportunity. Yes, we don't know how we got from the previous point to this one, but that just means that we have time to explain this ourselves. To give an example from my own writing, something that's pointed out as a criticism towards the Kelvinverse is the fact that Spock is far more emotional, despite his upbringing being fundamentally unchanged by the destruction of the Kelvin. I addressed this in my fanfic, Better Daughter or Son, explaining that due to slight changes in the timeline, Spock had a better relationship with Michael Burnham. Since he does state in Discovery that his falling out with Michael informed his decision to embrace logic, in a reality where they don't have that estrangement, Spock is going to be more willing to embrace his human side, as well as embracing a couple of other things. Writers in long-running franchises do this all the time. Many Star Wars writers have tried to explain Leia remembering her mother, despite Padme dying giving birth to Luke and Leia. Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat have spent their careers on Doctor Who applying their own headcanons to questions that were left open from the classic series, such as what happened to Sarah Jane Smith after being left in Aberdeen and how to deal with the limit of 13 regenerations. There is practically an entire cottage industry for this in Sherlock Holmes stories. Most modern fans will know for certain that Dr. Watson's middle name is Hamish. But that's actually only a fan explanation as to why Watson's wife called him James in one story, and that's because Arthur Conan Doyle forgot what his narrator's first name was. Yow. All of this really comes down to Sherlock Holmes. Everything I'm discussing really comes down to the Doyleist versus the Watsonian. That basically just means the out-of-universe explanation versus the in-universe explanation. The Doyleist answer to Mary Watson calling John James is that Arthur Conan Doyle forgot what Watson's name was. The Watsonian answer that has been accepted by fans at large is that his middle name is Hamish, which is a version of James, so Mary uses it as a pet name, which is real circuitous, but I don't know, let's go with it. Apparently, we've decided we're going to. The same thing can be applied to why things look sleeker in the prequels than in the original Star Wars trilogy. The Doyleist answer is because the prequels were made afterwards and thus had access to more advanced CGI. The Watsonian explanation is that the technology we see in the originals were hampered by 20 plus years of war. I think instead of complaining about these changes and errors made to stories, we need to embrace coming up with our own explanations as to why both things can be true. You don't have to be like me and get really elaborate with it. I mean, the fic I'm writing about Spock and Michael is pretty long. Seriously? That long? 40K? Damn, Spock's still an ensign! The point is, you don't have to write out an entire fanfic. Make a video about your theory filling in the plot hole. Do a podcast about how you think we got from point A to B. Write a tweet just stating what your explanation is. Or write a fanfic. I mean, if you're feeling it, you're feeling it. I'm not going to stop you. I'm never going to stop more fanfic coming into the world. We know the reason why there are continuity changes. These are not real people. These stories did not happen. Things don't have the same hard linear flow as things in the real world because continuity is not the same thing as history. Or, I mean, not even history, because certainly there have been retcons done on our understanding of what happened in our own past. So if even the narrative of the real world can be mutable, then narratives in the fictional world, yeah, it's no holds barred. I think this just creates an opportunity to explain why these supposed inconsistencies exist. In fact, I would love to come up with them myself. Comment below with some of your favorite continuity errors and retcons that haven't been explained within canon. I'll figure out a way to smooth out the continuity snarl. And if you want to see those videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Also like this video, share it across social media. All of that helps support this tiny channel. You can also head over to my Patreon and support me there, where you can get access to early videos and polls. If you're looking for something to wear, you can hit up my TeePublic and Redbubble, where you'll find my shirts. Today, I am wearing my Fanfic Trope shirt. So you can see this shirt and many others over on TeePublic and Redbubble. Until then, have a wonderful day, and may the Force be with you.